Main building में. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Okay, I hope you all are able to see the screen.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
Yes.
Great. Okay. So I think last time we started with the discussion on types of media. And what we have discussed till now is the basic difference in the types of media on the basis of the physical state of media, where we classified into solid medium, liquid medium, and semi-solid medium. And on the basis of the chemical composition, we classified it into simple media and complex media. Correct? Now we are going to look at some basic bacteriological media which you make use of in the microbiological lab on the daily basis. But before we get into those types, it's very important for us to understand about agar as to what agar is. Though some basic discussion we have already discussed, but let us try to understand some more points about agar. You very well know that agar-agar is utilized as a solidifying agent, right? You also know that it is extracted from the cell wall of red algae. Please understand that this agar-agar is nothing but a polysaccharide. It's a polymer of D-galactose and 3,6-anhydro-L-galactose and D-glucuronic acid. So these are the three subunits from which the polymer of agar is actually made. Please understand that for a media to be solidified, the agar concentration has to be around 1 to 2%. Okay, so 1 to 2% of agar is the minimum concentration to solidify the medium. So what do you basically mean by 1 to 2%? So when you say 1%, it basically stands for 1 gram of agar in 100 ml of your nutritive medium. Okay, when you say 2%, it's going to be 2 grams of agar in 100 ml of your nutritive medium. Okay, now this agar we have already discussed that it solidifies at 45 degrees Celsius and below, while it melts completely. I mean, complete melting of agar is going to be at around 90 degrees Celsius. Though the melting process will begin above 45 degrees, but complete melting will be achieved when that media reaches around 90 degrees Celsius. Now, before agar was discovered, we had two other agents which were commonly made use of. One being gelatin and another being silica gel. So these two were commonly utilized in the past as solidifying agents instead of agar-agar. Okay. Now, what you need to understand in this is that gelatin or silica gel is going to make more or less your medium semi-solid in consistency. The way agar gives a solid texture to your media, that's not going to be really seen in case of gelatin or silica gel as a solidifying agent. So today you will see that majority of the labs which are growing bacteria or fungi, they make use of agar-agar as a solidifying agent. Okay. Now, this is one of the most common media that is used in any microbiology laboratory to cultivate bacteria. Okay. Remember that this medium called as nutrient broth, that's obviously going to be the liquid form of the media. And if you are going to make a solid form of it, then you call it as nutrient agar. Okay, so nutrient broth is the term which is going to be used for the liquid medium, while nutrient agar is going to be the term which is used for the solid medium. Okay, so when you talk about the nutrient broth, let us see what are the different components which are present in it. First and foremost, you will see that there is beef extract. Okay, we have already discussed about beef extract, but we will be speaking about beef extract in more details today. So there is beef extract, there is peptone, and there is water. So two components and water is the composition of your nutrient broth. And nutrient agar, you can see that the only difference is that the additional component is water. But let me tell you that this composition now has been revised to include one additional component in it, which is sodium chloride, NaCl, which is a salt. So it is utilized to maintain osmotic equilibrium in the media. Okay, so NaCl is an added ingredient today so that the composition of the media is such that there is osmotic balance that is going to be maintained. You can see that beef extract is around 3 grams, peptone is around 5 grams, and this is for 1000 ml of the media. So you're going to add all this beef extract, peptone, this will all be available in the form of a powder. Okay, so you're going to add that powder, 2000 ml of distilled water, and you're going to make the media. Similarly, for agar, you will add all the components, you will add water, you will adjust the pH first. See, every medium has a designated pH. Depending on which organism you're going to grow in that media, the pH is going to be fixed. Okay, so you're going to set the pH and then you will add agar. Okay, why is it so? Because please understand that many a times few media have acidic pH, especially the ones which you utilize to grow fungi, because fungi loves to grow at acidic pH. तो ऐसे मीडियम का pH जो है वो acidic range में होता है 4-5 के करीब. Okay, now if you add agar first and then you try to add acid to the media to shift the pH towards acidic, क्योंकि कई बार कैसे होता है इंग्रेडिएंट्स डालने के बाद भी pH is around 7 only, around neutral. तो अगर तुम्हारे मीडिया का pH is acidic, I mean it should be acidic, then you will have to add acid to it, like 0.1 normal hydrochloric acid. You may have to use to adjust the pH towards the acidic range. Okay, so this should not be done after addition of agar. Okay, is anyone trying to ask something? If not, please keep yourselves on mute. Okay, so this should not be done after addition of agar. So that's the reason why the very first step that you have to do over here is adjust your pH. So you add all ingredients, add water, then you adjust the pH, and then you are going to, carry out the addition of agar. So adjusting the pH is the first important step that you will have to carry out before agar-agar is going to be added to your media. Why is that? We will see as we move ahead, and we will see some media which has acidic pH. So have patience till then. Now let us see the importance of each of the raw materials that we have just seen. First and foremost is beef extract. So beef extract, as the name suggests, it's an aqueous extract of lean beef tissue, which is concentrated to a paste and then further dehydrated so that you can obtain powder from it. Now, what is the nutritional value of beef extract? So it contains all water soluble nutrients of animal tissue, which includes carbohydrates, organic nitrogenous compounds, water soluble vitamins, and even salts. So you can see that it's acting as a carbon source. It's also acting as a nitrogen source. It's also providing vitamins. It also has some salts. As far as peptone is concerned, peptone is produced by digestion of any proteinaceous material. That could be meat, that could be casein, which is milk protein, or even gelatin. So you digest a protein-rich material using enzymes or acids such that it is broken down into smaller versions of proteins. Okay, so obviously depending on the source, if you digest meat, or if you digest casein, or if you digest gelatin, the nutritional value of the peptone is going to depend on the source that you have made use of. Meat may be extremely rich in proteins as compared to gelatin. So the source from which you have prepared peptone will decide how rich it is in terms of nitrogen. So peptone is the principal source of organic nitrogen. Most of the nitrogen demand that the organism has is going to be met by peptone. Because here you are degrading proteins using enzymes, and the degraded form of the protein, see, these enzymes or acid is not going to break down proteins completely to the level of free amino acids. It's going to give some peptides, some partially degraded set of proteins, which you are referring to here as peptones. Okay, they are going to be the main source of organic nitrogen that your organism is going to get from the media. But along with organic nitrogen, they may also contain some vitamins. Some organisms also have the ability of using peptone as a carbon source. Okay, sometimes depending on the origin from which you prepared peptone, the source from which you prepared peptone, there could be also some amount of carbohydrates. Okay, next comes agar-agar, which is a polysaccharide. We already discussed, it's obtained from red algae. You will process it so that any other materials which are coming from the cell wall of red algae should be removed. It should be just pure agar-agar. It's used as a solidifying agent, right? We have already discussed that it completely melts at 90 degrees Celsius, while it solidifies below 45 degrees Celsius. Agar is not considered to be a nutrient source to the bacteria. Please remember that agar-agar is just a solidifying agent. It is not expected to act as a nutrient source for the organisms. But let me tell you that there are some bacterial species which produce set of enzymes called as agarases, which have the ability to degrade agar, especially the marine bacteria. You will see that few marine microorganisms have this ability to produce enzymes to degrade agar. Then, you know, growing such microorganisms in presence of agar-agar may be difficult, because as they grow, they will break down agar-agar and the medium will not remain solid eventually. Okay? Because if they are prolific degraders of agar-agar, you will see that the main solidifying agent, if it is destroyed, then can you expect the media to be solid for a long period of time? Let me tell you, agar degradation rate normally is very slow. So you can also come to know if a bacterial colony is of an agar degrader or not, because wherever they will grow, they will create a pit in that solid media, a cavity-like condition in that solid media, which is an indication that they eat agar. Okay, but obviously such organisms are few in number. So very well you can cultivate the other bacterial species on a media containing agar. As far as yeast extract is concerned, I have told you that earlier also, that an aqueous extract of yeast cells is commercially available in the form of a powder. Yeast extract is utilized because it's going to be a very rich source of vitamin B complex. Okay, so whatever vitamin B forms are required for the microorganism to grow, yeast extract could be a source of that. Other than this, your yeast extract could also act as a nitrogen source and can also act as a carbon source. Okay, so these are some of the basic components that you will see that any media is normally going to have. Okay, now please understand this, that making a bacteriological media or any media for that matter to cultivate microorganisms has specific steps to follow, right from weighing the ingredients to dissolving it in water, adjusting the pH, adding agar-agar if you are making a solid media, and then even sterilizing it. Remember, until and unless you sterilize it, you cannot make use of that particular medium for cultivation of microorganisms. Why is it so? This is because the water, the ingredients that you have made use of, has been exposed to the external environment. So it may contain microorganisms in it, right? So you don't want any other microorganisms to grow, which are coming from the constituents of your media. So that's the reason why sterilizing it before use to ensure that all inherent microorganisms there are killed is going to be extremely important. So these steps have to be followed when you are going to make a media in the lab. Okay, so I'm going to quickly try and show you how this is done. So just give me a minute. You will be any which ways seeing this video in your practicals, but because you should get a sense of what we are talking about, I will try to show you a video. Okay, just give me a minute to find it. Where I kept that part. Yes. Okay. So this is a video that was made in our lab itself, okay, which I have tried to record so that students come to know how the media is made. Just give. Okay, you are going to tell me once the screen is visible to you. Can you see the screen?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is recorded in our lab, and let us see if this helps you understand the process of making media in the lab. Okay.
So audio is not.
So we can't hear the audio.
Okay, just give me a minute to reshare it. An experiment as to how we do that in our laboratory setup. So we have already had a theoretical discussion of how to make commonly used media for growing bacteria and fungi. And I'm going to show the same process to you here in the laboratory. So without any delay, let us begin with it. So right now I am in the preparation area, and what I have done is I have taken up all the glasswares which are going to be needed for making the media, beginning with 250 ml flask. I have also taken measuring cylinder in which I will measure the volume of water that needs to be added to make the media. I have also taken distilled water, and I also have the composition ready. Right now I don't have a book with me, so what I have done is I have noted the composition on a piece of paper, but whenever you are working in the laboratory, your raw data book should always have the composition of the media that you want to prepare. And along with that, I have my toolkit. So the micro kit basically contains of labels, markers, scalpels, forceps. You can also see that there is a matchbox and a lighter, because if you want to work between the burners, you're going to need them. So I have all the things ready over here. And now obviously I have to first look for these components which will be added to make the media. So we are going to make two media over here, nutrient agar and Sabourates agar. So whatever are the components needed, that's going to be available here itself. So once you turn around in the preparation area, you will see all the set of chemicals which have been arranged alphabetically. Okay, so you just need to look for the chemicals that you need and take them out. And once you take them out, you can begin weighing them as per your requirement and start making the media. So let me take out all the chemicals that we need to make nutrient agar and Sabourates agar. So now you can see that whatever was essential for making the media has been removed and it has been kept ready. Now I will go to the next step, wherein I will first label my flask. Because while I'm adding the components, I shouldn't confuse them. So I will begin with the labeling process over here. So to begin with the labeling process, I have first taken a marker and I'm going to pick up one of the flasks and I'm going to label it. So if I am going to make nutrient broth, I will label it as nutrient broth, or you can also just write as NB. Okay, so if you don't want to write the entire name, you could just write it as NB, which will be an abbreviation for nutrient broth. And also I will see to it that I write my initials, okay, and I will write the date on which I'm preparing this. So I write it as 21st. And you can see that this is how the entire label would look like, wherein I have the date, I have the name of the media, and I have my initials. Now, it is very much essential to label it in this pattern for a basic reason that anyone who is putting this into the autoclave for sterilization and taking it out should know that this flask belongs to you. And also at the same time, the date is very significant because you should also remember that when you prepared it, right? And everything has its own expiry date. So you have to understand that you cannot prepare a broth and just keep it forever. Okay, obviously if it is sterilized, it will remain as it is, it will remain sterile for a good amount of time, but then it's always essential to know that when you prepare this, okay, if you are inoculating this, you could also change the date to the date of inoculation so that you come to know that when you inoculated the sample into this, and that also gives you an idea of when you started this particular experiment. Okay, so similarly, I will be labeling the other flask as well, but let us say that now I'm going to make a nutrient agar. So I label it as NA, I put my initials, and I put the date. So this is how the next flask would look like, wherein I have labeled it with the name of the agar, nutrient agar, my initials, and the date. Okay. Similarly, I will do it for the other media also, which is going to be Sabourates broth and Sabourates agar. Okay, So I will do the same for all other flasks and keep them ready before I go to weigh the ingredients out. Yeah. So now everything is labeled, everything is ready. So I could begin with my weighing process. So I'm going to take you to the weighing balance now. So here is our weighing balance setup. You will always see that there are some papers kept here for weighing. There's also a spoon which could be utilized for adding the ingredients that you want to weigh. And the process first begins with switching on the main plug. So as you switch on the main plug, the instrument is going to start on its own, okay? And it will show you the indicator of on. And as it shows you the indicator of on, you could see that there's a button which says on or off, right? So we are going to click on that in order to switch it on. And once it switches it on, normally it should be at 00, but if it doesn't show you 00, if it shows you some kind of weight, then in that case, you have another button over here, which you can see reads as tare. Okay, so if it's not at 00, what you can do is you click on tare, and this button is going to set it back to 00. But obviously, this is going to be only when there is some kind of reading over here, even when nothing is being weighed. So in those circumstances, you need to click on tare so that it is set back to 00, and then you can start working. So I have all my apparatuses over here. I have my glass fed, I have the weighing balance, I have all my ingredients, the weighing paper, also the spoon. Okay. So to begin with, first and foremost, you pick up a paper to weigh your ingredient, and you're not going to place it like this. If you're going to place it like this, there's a chance that whatever you weigh, so you're going to fold this. Okay, you're going to fold it in such a way that the edges are going to be in a way raised so that the ingredients do not fall off. Okay, fold the paper in this fashion, okay, such that the edges are completely raised in this way, okay, so that it's not going to spill off. So you're folding it from all the sides, and then you're going to put it on the weighing balance. Okay, so it's very simple. It's just that you're folding it at all the edges. Now, once you do that, you are going to place it on the weighing balance. And the moment you place it on weighing balance, there is going to be some weight of the paper that's going to be shown. So let me show you that first. So you can see that the moment I have placed the paper on the weighing balance, there is a weight that is being shown. And I'm going to click on tare to, in a way, nullify this and bring it to 00. So you could see that the moment I clicked on tare, it has gone back to 00. So it's nullifying the weight now. So now whatever I am going to add onto the paper, that's going to start from 00, and then there is going to be no confusion with respect to the amount of any ingredient that you're going to add to make the media. Okay, so let's begin with weighing the very first component for nutrient broth. Okay, so we are going to start with peptone. So to begin with, I have a jar over here, and this jar basically is going to contain clean water, and you can see that there's a spoon in it. Okay, so you could use this spoon for the weighing purpose, but please ensure that this should not be wet, because whatever ingredients you're going to weigh and add, they are in a powder form, and they mostly are organic components. So if you're going to add water to it, there is a chance that it's going to get spoiled, right? So we need to ensure that you have a cloth using which you wipe this out clean so that it's completely dry. Okay, and once you wipe this out, you are going to start weighing the media. Okay, so to begin with, let's say that you are going to use peptone. So let me take out peptone over here. So you all could see that this is the bottle of peptone, right? So I am going to open this and I am going to remove a spoonful of peptone from this. Don't take too much because you will end up adding too much then. And very gradually, I'm going to put this on the paper. Now, when I put this on the paper, I'm going to see to it that it doesn't fall on the folded edges. And I am going to keep a check on the weight that's being shown. Okay, once it is close to 1, I am very gradually going to add it, and if it is slightly excess, I could remove it as well. Okay, so whatever I have used, that spoon is going to go back into the washing jar. Okay, now I will show you what's the reading on the weighing balance. So you could see that here it's around 1.03, which is fine because I needed 1 gram. So I have added it. It was slightly excess, so I removed a little, which you could avoid by adding, very slowly onto the paper, and you could stop at the point that it's nearing 1. Okay, so once this is ready, I am going to put this into the flask. So let's see how that is done. So I have my flask ready, which is already labeled with all the things that are needed. And now also I have weighed peptone. So I'm going to unfold one edge very slowly. And I am going to add this into the flask immediately. Okay, and tap it from the backside and from the top, because these are all hygroscopic components which tend to stick onto the paper. So tap it well so that whatever is there on the paper should get transferred into your flask. So this is how it should look when all ingredient that you had weighed is transferred into it. Okay, so once you are done, now you can go for weighing the next ingredient. So once you're done weighing the first ingredient, we are now going to go to the second ingredient, but please ensure that the bottle of the first ingredient is tightly capped, because as I said that most of these ingredients are hygroscopic. So you need to take care that you immediately close the bottles from which you took the material and then go for the second one. And also remember that the paper that you use for weighing should ideally be different, because as I said that these materials stick onto the paper. So if the previous ingredient is still on the paper, that's going to add to the weighing errors. So it's always better that you go for a new paper for a different set of an ingredient. Okay, so I'm going to fold this again, and I'm going to fold all the edges so that I don't spill it while I am going to weigh it. So I fold it from all edges, and once that is done, I'm going to place it on the weighing balance. It's going to show me some reading. I'm going to click on tare to set it at 00, and then I will start the weighing process. So the next ingredient over here is yeast extract, as you could clearly see, and I have to weigh around 0.3 grams of yeast extract for 100 ml of Nutrien Raw. So I'm going to ensure that my spoon is clean from the previous weighing, and I'm going to, in a way, clean it and dry it using a cloth, post which I will weigh yeast extract. So I'm going to open, I'm going to take some amount of it. As it's 0.3 grams, it's very low. So I am going to be careful with my weighing process. Okay, so it's done. And I'm going to put the spoon back and I'm immediately going to close the bottle. And it's highly hygroscopic, so it's good that you wait and immediately you are going to put it into the flask. So again, tap it from all ends. See to it that it's properly into the flask. Okay, if you end up adding it late to the flask and you see that some amount of it is stuck onto the paper, then you could add water while you are going to add water to the final composition. You can pass the water through the paper, so whatever is stuck onto the paper goes into the media. So but for that you will obviously have to wait till the end, but it's better that you immediately add it into the flask so that all of it goes into the flask. Okay, so that's about the second ingredient, and I'm going to throw this paper off and start with a new paper for the next chemical, for the next ingredient. So the next ingredient here is going to be sodium chloride, NaCl. So for that, already the spoon has been washed. I'm going to just clean it with a cloth, post which I'm going to open the box. I have already put a weighing paper on the weighing balance and I have tagged it. So it's 0.5 grams. So I'm going to take some amount of NaCl and add it gradually to the paper. And the moment I get 0.5, I'm going to stop and I'm going to add that to the media. So I pick up the paper, slightly unfold it from one end, and I'm going to add all NaCl into the flask. So all ingredients that were needed for the nutrient broth has been added to it. Okay, only now the water part is left. Okay. So meanwhile, what I have done is I have also prepared a flask for nutrient agar, okay, having the same constituents, because nutrient agar is going to differ only in one component, that is it's going to contain agar, right? Rest of all the ingredients are going to be the same as it is in case of nutrient broth. So I have made two flasks, one for nutrient broth and one for the nutrient agar. Okay, now the next step that is going to be is to add water to it, okay, and only then the pH will be tested, post which to the nutrient agar flask you could add agar. Agar is never added before you test the pH, okay? So please remember this point, that you weigh all other ingredients except agar once whenever you are making nutrient agar. So you add all other ingredients, add water to it, adjust the pH, post which you are going to incorporate agar if you're making a nutrient agar. If it's a nutrient broth, then your work would be done. Just add water, adjust the pH, and you could give it ahead for autoclaving. So after weighing all the ingredients, the next step is going to be addition of distilled water. So we have a distilled water can which is filled with distilled water. We have a separate distillation apparatus which is going to produce distilled water, and it is stocked up for use. Okay, so you have a measuring cylinder. We know that we have weighed the constituents according to 100 ml of nutrient broth or nutrient agar. So I will have to add 100 ml into the constituents that I have weighed in the flask right now. Okay, so using this measuring cylinder, which has a marking of 10 to 100, I am going to around measure 100 ml and add it directly to the flask. Okay, so let us quickly begin with that. So I'm going to check that it is exactly 100. If there is some difference, if it is a little excess, you can pour it out. If you feel that it is less, then you can add it. And now this is exactly 100. If you could see, It's exactly at the mark of 100. So I am going to add this into the flask. Okay. Do not spill the water when you add it to the flask, otherwise the volume is going to get affected. So gently shake it. Do not shake it very vigorously such that all constituents come on the side of the flask. That's not a good practice. Very gently shake it to dissolve all the constituents that is there in this particular media. So I'm going to do the same for the other flask as well. So I have added water to the other flask as well. And while adding the ingredients, if you notice that some of the ingredients have, gone from the sides and it is stuck at the sides of the flask, please see to it that you put water from that end so that whatever is stuck in the sides of the flask, that should get dissolved in water. Okay? And shake it gently till the time all the ingredients in that is going to dissolve. And once everything dissolves, right now it's looking a little turbid, right? But once everything dissolves, you will see that it becomes a clear solution. Okay, so here you can see that the ingredients have almost dissolved, and also the solution has started becoming clearer, right? So once everything has dissolved, then you can go for checking the pH. So the next step is adjusting pH, and for that we are going to make use of pH paper. So pH paper comes in different pH ranges which you could test for, and they also have an indicator at the front of the bundle wherein it shows you that what color would you observe when it is of that particular pH. Okay, so you could see that in this case, if it's 6.5, it's yellow. For 7, it becomes slightly darker. For 7.5, it goes towards the skin color. For 8, it becomes red. For 8.5, it's going towards purple. So in that manner, you will see that once you add the solution whose pH you want to test, looking at the color change, you could compare it with this standard chart and find out what is the pH of your specific solution. So this is for one pH range. Similarly, you have for another pH range, which is from 1 to 7, which is a very broad range. And there is also one for a shorter range, which goes from 3.5 to 6. Okay, but for nutrient broth and nutrient agar, I know that the pH that I want is around 7.4. So I am going to go ahead with this third one, which we saw the very first time, because this is something which falls within the range and will help me test the pH effectively. So we are going to work with this particular pH range, and you can see that the strip is something like this, wherein you have several strips over here. Please ensure that you never touch it with wet hands or with hands using which you have dealt with some chemicals. So your hand has to be very clean and dry so that you don't spoil the papers. And you don't have to use an entire strip. Okay, a very small piece of that would work. So using a Caesar, you could cut a very small piece of it and place it on a clean and dry Petri dish base or lid, and using a glass rod or a pipette, you could take a drop of the solution whose pH you want to test, and you could put that on the small piece of paper that you have placed over here, and you could notice the color change. Okay, so that's what we are exactly going to do now, so you'll be able to see how it is exactly done. So I have a cleansed dry glass rod with me, using which I am going to take a drop of this particular completely dissolved and clear nutrient agar or broth that I had made, and I am just going to dip this rod into it. Okay, and I'm going to place this drop very gently over the pH paper that I have kept. Okay, and I'm going to compare its color with the pH strip that has been provided to me, and I'm going to find out if it is in the range that I want it to be, wherein I want the pH to be around 7.4. So you can see that right now, the color that you see is very close to what 6.5 is, right? And I want it at the range of 7.4. So this is not something which I desire. So as it is acidic right now, then what I need, I am going to add a drop full of NaOH, for which you can see that always to adjust the pH, we make one normal NaOH and one normal HCl. You could also make a lower strength NaOH and HCl. You could start with 0.1 normal. The lower the intensity is, obviously the amount of acid or alkali that you may have to add could slightly change, could increase, okay? And if you're using a strong alkali or strong acid, then you have to be sure that you don't add too much of it, because the pH could shift drastically and that could be very disastrous for your media. We don't want to use too much of acid or alkali in the media. So we will carefully, using a pipette drop by drop, we will add NaOH. So if I add one drop, I'm going to mix it and I'm going to check the pH. Only then, if needed, I will go for the second drop, not otherwise. So I'm going to use a clean and dry 1 ml pipette to do this, wherein I am going to take NaOH. And I'm going to add just a drop of it to my media. And I'm going to swirl it so that the alkali spreads. And then I'm going to take a pH paper and another piece of pH paper. I cannot use the same one which I used earlier. So I will take a small piece once again and I will check the pH in the same way. So you could see that now after adding NaOH, the color of the pH paper is something like this, which is very, very close to what it is according to the range for 7.5. Okay, it's quite close. It's between 7 and 7.5. Okay, so that's adequate for me, because as I said that I don't want to add too much of alkali, and you can also see the comparison, how it was earlier and how it is now. Right, so the addition has been done. Similarly, I will also adjust the pH for nutrient agar flask. Okay, and once the pH is adjusted, then we are going to add around 2 to 2.5 grams of agar to the nutrient agar flask and not to the nutrient broth flask. So once I add that, I will show you how it looks like. So I have weighed around 2.5 grams of agar and I have added that to the nutrient agar flask. So you can see that after addition of agar, it looks slightly turbid, and all the agar you can see at the base. And this is the nutrient broth, which doesn't contain the agar. Okay, so you can clearly see the difference, that which one is broth and which one is agar. Okay, now you need to understand that this agar is going to dissolve in it when you heat it. Okay, so if you're making plates, if you're making nutrient agar plates, this could be directly given for autoclaving. And when it comes out of the autoclave after sterilization, you will see that it looks crystal clear. Okay, you won't see such turbidity or haziness in the nutrient agar, and it would look very similar to what the broth right now looks like, but it's going to be a little thicker because of presence of the solidifying agent. Okay, now to give this for autoclaving, I have to plug this with cotton. So how do I make cotton plugs is what the next step is going to be all about. Okay, so now we are going to discuss as to how you can make cotton plugs to plug in your test tubes and other glassware, especially when you are going to put in things for sterilization like a flask containing media. You will have to plug it up. Okay, so for that you are going to make use of non-absorbent cotton. This is different from the normal cotton that is available, and non-absorbent cotton is used basically because it is not going to absorb a lot of moisture from the surrounding, and even when you put it in water, it normally tends to float. Okay, so non-absorbent cotton is something that is very commonly used for plugging in your glasswares. So this is the non-absorbent cotton that I have taken, and I am converting it into a thin sheet of it, a very thin sheet of it, post which I'm going to fold it. Okay, I'm going to fold it in such a way that it forms a thick plug for me to plug in my flask. Okay, so I am going to fold it. Okay, and after folding it, you could check it on a normal flask first, wherein you try to insert it. Okay, it should be pretty tight. Okay, it should be pretty tight, so that the way to check if it is tight or not is to just shake it after attaching it onto the flask, such that it shouldn't fall. Okay, this is an indication that this is pretty much tight. Okay, now we also reuse the cotton plugs that has been made earlier. So you can see that here is earlier used cotton plug, which can be reused because this is something that's going to go into the autoclave. So only thing that you should ensure is, if you're going to reuse it, take a very thin layer of the absorbent cotton, a very thin layer, and externally just coat it with this. Okay, just coat it with it, and then you use this for plugging it into the flask. So gently rotate this into the flask such that it's tight. Okay, so now this, you can see that it doesn't fall off. Okay, so this is how it should be. So similarly, we will also plug in the other flask that we have with an already existing cotton plug, which I'm going to reuse. So I'm going to keep it over here, coat it with a thin layer of new cotton. Okay, and I'm going to plug this up. So I'm going to gently again rotate this such that it fits in. Okay, and this is ready. Now, obviously, it's not going to go into the autoclave just like that. I have an additional step to it. So that step is going to be wrapping this up with a paper so that this doesn't become wet, because it doesn't absorb moisture, but then yes, the steam could accumulate around and that could make it slightly soggier, which I want to avoid. So I'm going to cover this up with a piece of paper. So I'll show you how that is done too. Similarly, I will use another piece of paper to cover the another flask. Right? So I have it over here. Okay, now obviously I will have to tie it up. We don't use, so gently knot it up. Other different kinds of media, following the protocols, see the pH and accordingly choose a pH paper range, and you could do this work in the laboratory. I hope that video was pretty simple and lucid for you to understand. Yes,
sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
recorded last year for the FY students, so I thought why not make use of it. Because last year I was teaching them practicals. This year I will not be there in FY practicals. So I had recorded few videos. So whenever I come across those techniques, I will surely try and show you those in the theory sessions itself so that you understand the technique. Okay, so I'm sorry I have overshooted the time. It's 3 minutes past 2:20. I'm sorry for that, but I really hope that this video has helped you boost and enhance your understanding. And as you are not, seeing these happening live in front of you, at least I think that these kind of videos will surely help you. Okay. So
Yes,
any
sir.
queries further, we will discuss it in our next session, because some of you may be having your lectures, so I don't want to disrupt that. So see you all in the next session. Thank you so much. And for the test, I will be posting the link in the evening. I'm sorry for that. We have had some internet issues here in the department again today. So that link will be posted on the Google Classroom, and I hope that you all would attempt the test by the next session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
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 Thank you, sir. Good day.